अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। सर्वेभ्यो नमः। सर्वेषां कृते स्वागतम्. We are now at the end of the 15th chapter of Bhagavad-gita. In the last session, we completed the last two shlokas of the 15th chapter. In today's session, we will do a quick overview because, as I observed at the end of the last session, there have been a number of different terms and concepts covered in the 15th chapter. So, in each of the previous sessions, we looked at them in isolation, but today we can integrate all of them into giving one full picture. So, I've prepared a kind of a simple roadmap, a map of the chapter. There are 7 themes which are covered here. The first theme pertains to samsara, second param-padam or param-padam. The third is the jivatma in samsara. The fourth is the realized jivatma versus the impure jivatma, the contrast between them. The fifth is the Ishvara, Ishvara's role, what role he plays in supporting and sustaining this universe. And then in the sixth theme, the contrast between the Ishvara and the Jiva. And finally, bhakti to Ishvara as the ultimate thing. So these are the 7 themes which I could identify in the 15th chapter. Now I will give you a quick overview of each of them so that you get the full picture. The first one is samsara, where in 3 shlokas, Sri Bhagavan actually compares the samsara to an inverted ashwatha vriksha. It is urdhva moola madashakam, ashwatam prahur avyayam. It is avyaya, means it doesn't have a beginning or an end. And that he says again, Chandamsi yasya parnani yastam veda sa vedavit. Adhascha urdhvam prasutastasya shakaha guna pravriddaha vishaya pravalaha. Adhascha mulani anusantatani karmanubandhini manushya loke. Na rupam asya iha tathopalabhyate nanto na cha adir na cha sampratishtha. Ashwatthaменam savirudhamulam asanga shastrena dridena chitva. So he says that the beginning and the end of this Ashwatha Vriksha, it cannot be found. Means our material existence, samsara, it's difficult or it's impossible to say when it began. There is no beginning, it's beyond time. Similarly, by default, there is no end to it. It's not like it's going to end at a particular point of time. The ending, if at all it has to end, it has to be brought about by us. Okay, so we will talk more about that. Then the leaves of this are the Veda, because the Vedas, through the Vedas, by following the Vedas, we can continue our material existence in a dharmic manner. And this is nourished by the gunas. Now, should we continue the material existence? Should we continue to remain in samsara? No. That is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is essentially campaigning or telling us that our duty or we ought to, the purpose of our life should be to chop down this samsara and realize pure knowledge, our pure self, and Sri Bhagavan, and thereby attain our perfect state in which we experience pure, genuine happiness. Okay, so how do we chop down that Ashwatha Vriksha? How do we destroy our samsara and go beyond it? Asanga. Asanga shastrena dhridena chitva. Asanga shastram means the weapon of detachment, becoming detached from everything material by looking at it not as our property. When do we become attached? When we think that this belongs to me, this is my property, it is under my control. I have to make it survive, things like that. So asanga means that okay, I am responsible for this. I have a responsibility, but it's not my property. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the universal being, to the Ishvara. And by developing that consciousness strongly, we're looking at everything in terms of in terms of Ishvara's possession. Everything belongs to Ishvara. So when we are able to develop that sufficiently maturely, when there is maturity in seeing that, then detachment becomes natural for us. We are detached from everything. We do our duties with a strong sense of responsibility. But even as we do our duties, we know that nothing is mine. Everything belongs to Him. I am here only for a short while. I've come into this birth in some manner. I'm going to leave this birth after some time, leaving everything behind. Nothing will go with me. Nothing came with me, nothing will go with me. In between, some things are in contact with me. And this kind of vision helps us to develop asanga. And the Gita strongly recommends that. By doing that, we go beyond and we experience genuine happiness. So, this is how the 15th chapter begins by describing samsara as the inverted Ashwatha Vriksha. We went into a lot of detail at that point of time. I will not go into those details again because I'm doing an overview now. So, the Ashwatha Vriksha must be chopped down, it must be destroyed. It is not to be glorified. Okay, what is the second thing? The second theme is param-padam. Param-padam means that perfect state of existence. Param, the word param in Sanskrit has multiple meanings. One, param means something that is beyond, or something that is superior, or something that is at a distance away from us. So here, param here can mean something that is beyond our current state of existence and something that is superior to our current state of existence, something that is better than our current state of existence. Param padam. So that state of existence is what we should achieve. So how does Sri Bhagavan talk about that? We'll have a look at it. He says, Tataf padam tat parimargitavyam yasmin gata na nivartanti bhuyaha tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yataf pravrittif prasita purani moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kamaha dvandvair vimuktaha sukha dukkha samyaihi gacchantyamudaha padamavyayam tat na tad bhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha yad gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. So he's saying that one must seek that perfect state of existence from which one does not return. Now, actually, sometimes, if somebody hears this without knowing what we are talking about, okay, one must go to a place from which you don't return. My God, it's so scary. Why would anyone want to do that? It's like, this guy went to the Himalayas, but he didn't come back. No one knows where he is. Okay, when somebody makes a statement like that, then you become scared. Oh, don't go there. Don't go in that direction at all. Right? That's what you would advise him. But here no return does not mean in that sense. What it means is like this. I'll give you an analogy for this. Now let us say that you people are doing your PhD, right? You're doing your FPME, call it PhD also. Now you're doing it with the intention to complete your PhD. Why? Because you want to be known as a PhD holder. You want to be known as Dr. So and so, right? Dr. Puneet, Dr. Akshat, right? So you want to know yourself, you want to see yourself as soon as possible in that state. And to go to that state, you have to do something. I mean, you have to study books, you have to do some practice of some tools, you have to apply some thinking, you have to do some logical reasoning, contemplation, etc. By acquiring suitable knowledge and by writing a thesis with that knowledge, you ultimately acquire a PhD. Now you look forward to it, right? You're not doing it because somebody has beaten you and say you should do this. You're looking forward to it. You want that state of existence where you're called a PhD. Because that state of existence in your mind is superior to your current state of existence when you don't have a PhD. You're not yet, you're a master's, but you don't have a PhD. So once you become a PhD, you will never become a non-PhD, right? You will always be a PhD all your life. You will always be Dr. So-and-so. Even if you don't do any further education in your life, you're always Dr. So-and-so. There is no return. There's no return to your current state of existence. That's the way in which we should understand this. So it is something that we look forward to, getting out of samsara to our pure state of existence, where there is full knowledge, where we feel natural happiness. We don't have to depend on something external for happiness. We feel happy from within. We don't have to depend on great food or a party or great relationships with people around here, impressing people here. This kind of thing is not required because internally happiness comes. On top of that, if we want to also experience food, that is fine. We can also do that. We will not lose our taste for food or for good relationships with people. So, in that state of existence, because there is so much, perfection of knowledge and happiness, it is something that we look forward to, and we would not want to come back here. Once you attain that state of existence, who would want to come back? Because this state of existence we are in is not a state where we feel perpetual happiness. For our happiness, we depend on so many things, and the happiness goes up and down. We sometimes experience misery, suffering. It's always black and white, right? Or some shades of gray in between. But now the Gita is showing us there is a state of existence where you would not want to return. And that is what he is saying. Yasmin gataha na nivartanti bhuyaha. A person, once he goes there, will not want to come back, will not come back naturally, right? And one should seek out to be able to attain that state of existence. One should seek out that original person who is the source of Prakriti. Prakriti is what is keeping us in the samsara. Because of Prakriti and our attachment to Prakriti, we are in samsara. Prakriti means material nature. Now, that original person, Krishna is referring to himself in third person. You see, throughout the Gita, Krishna refers to himself sometimes in first person and sometimes in third person, like this. So, to be able to attain that state of existence beyond samsara, one should seek out that original person. And seeking out the original person means one has to, he says, nirmana moha jitasanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kamaha dvandvair vimuktaha sukadukka samyahi dvandvaihi vimuktaha. So these five things we discussed in that class. So these are the internal properties we should develop. We should transform ourselves. We should become free from false ego, false delusion. We should become free from false attachments. We should contemplate on our original nature or true nature all the time. Become free from lusting after different things. And most importantly, we should not lie to others, cheat to others, try to take shortcuts in life. Live a simple life, honest, simple, honest life, even if it means that we are compromising on material happiness. Live a simple, honest life so that we can focus on the higher thing. Okay, that is internal transformation. So, internal transformation is what helps us to attain this. It what helps us to connect with that person, Krishna, and through him attain the state of no return. And then he further says that that particular state is so attractive that it is self illuminated. It does not require the sun or the moon, because here in this state of existence, we depend on the sun. Everything, all the energy we get is from the sun and the reflection of the sun from the moon and so on, right? But in this particular state, our energy need not come from the sun. It comes from inside. It comes completely from inside. It's self illuminated. All knowledge is inside. So even if you are put in a very dark cave, it won't matter. Of course, that is a state of perfection, and we should not try that now. But it is so perfect that there is internal illumination, there is internal knowledge. All the time you are conscious of that knowledge. And he says that he, that original person, Krishna, is always in that state. He never experiences any other state because he is always eternally perfect. And like I just now explained, one who attains that state, he says it second time, two times. You see, in three shlokas, he is saying it two times. In the first shloka, you see, Yasmin gataha na nivartanti bhuyaha. In the third shloka, Yat gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam. So he is emphasizing again and again, he repeats that. Please, make it a serious objective in life that you want to attain that state. And after attaining it, you will not come back. There is no need to come. So this is the second theme. The third theme is about the jivatma in samsara. So now we have spoken about samsara and then the pure state of existence beyond samsara. Next, he speaks about the jivatma itself in samsara. So let's look at that. What does he say about the jivatma? So he says, Mama eva amshaha, mama eva amsho jiva loke, jiva bhutas sanatanaha, manashashtani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. Shariram yadavapnoti yachapyutkramati ishvaraha. Grihitva etani sanyati vayur gandhani va ashayat. Shrotram chakshushparshanam cha rasanam ghranam eva cha adhishthaya manaschayam vishayan upasevate. So he first begins by pointing out that, okay, we are jivatmas, but even though we are in samsara, it doesn't mean that we are a different kind of being. We're actually a part of him only. In some sense, we are him. Okay, we are not identical with him. We have a different identity, but we are still his part. We are his eternal fragments, although we are distinct from him. And being in samsara, why are we in samsara? Because of our attachment to Prakriti. And how does our existence in samsara happen? We carry our mind and senses. It's through this mind and senses, which means six senses, the five knowledge acquiring or the jnanendriyam, the five jnanendriyas and manaha. That's called together the six senses. So sashtani indriyani. He says it's through these that we actually experience our so-called happiness in this world. All our sense of happiness that we look for happens through these six senses. So therefore, because it happens through them, we are very deeply attached to them. We can't give them up. And actually, these are a part of our linga shariram. So, okay, we have stula shariram, which is the gross body, which consists of all the blood and the flesh and the bones and everything, which we can feel and see. We can see each other's gross bodies. But we have our subtle body or the linga shariram. The linga shariram has, in it the six indriyas mentioned here. So when we leave one body and go to another body, we leave the stula shariram behind. The gross body gets destroyed. Our stula sharira gets destroyed, but our linga sharira goes with us. We carry it with us. Okay, and that is how our samsara continues. And then he says this is just like a wind carries a smell from its source. When the wind comes in contact with some object which has some smell, as it moves forward, it does not leave the smell behind, it leaves the object behind. It was in contact with that object, just like we are in contact with the gross body, the stula shariram. We leave the gross body, but we don't leave the mind and the senses. So similarly, just like the wind leaves the object in which it was in contact, but does not leave the smell of that object, it carries the smell forward. In the same way, we carry our mind and senses forward as we go from one body to another body. And with the mind and the five senses, we experience the Vishayas. So this is about the Jivatma in samsara. It explains how our existence continues here. It throws some light on that. That was the third theme, and now going to the fourth theme. It's about the contrast between the Jivatma who has actually realized the truth, is established in that perfect state of existence, versus the one who has not attained it, even if that person is endeavoring to attain. So let's see what Sri Bhagavan says there. He says, Utkramantam stitham vapi bhunjanam va gunanvitam vimoodaha nanupashyanti pashyanti jnana chakshushaha yatanto yoginaschainam pashyantyatmanyavasthitam yatanto api akritatmanaha nainam pashyanti achetasaha. So the realized person is able to see very clearly the truth as it is, even though the realized person may change bodies in the material world. Utkaramantam, that is, he says, going from one body to another body. Suppose the self-realized person, normally we expect the self-realized person to be liberated, but for some reason, if that doesn't happen, then even then, the person can clearly see that, okay, actually, it is just a change of body. I'm not dying. I'm just changing one garment to another garment. That's all. Okay, a person is wearing a coat, he removes the coat and wears a jacket because the jacket is more warm in the winter, he thinks. So therefore, the jacket has changed. The coat has changed to the jacket, but the person remains the same. Similarly, I am the same, only my body has changed. So this, the self-realized person is able to very clearly see. But vimudaha na anupashyanti, the foolish person, the impure person. Vimudaha literally means a foolish or a confused person. Okay, and that is because of impurity. Akritatma. Here it's put akritatma here. You see here, akritatma means one who is not attained his perfection because of impurities, means his mind and senses are still very much attached to all the things. His ego is very much present, ahankara. So he's not able to see the truth. So the contrast is very clearly explained in these two shlokas. And it says, yatantaha yoginaschayanam pashyanti, but yatantaha api akritatmanah, which means a person who is endeavoring, but he has still not purified himself. He's still not reached that perfection. So he will not be able to see. The impure one is not. So, having explained this, this is the fourth theme. So, we have seen now the samsara, the contrasting state of existence to samsara, an explanation of how the jivatma exists in samsara, continues as samsara, the contrast between two types of jivatma in samsara, and then the Ishvara's role. Okay, so the Ishvara's role in sustaining the samsara, that shows his, he doesn't want to just leave it like that. He could have done that, right? He could have just ignored, because after all, what is the need for him? There is no need. He is always perfect. So he can say that those who want to remain in samsara, that is their, that's their problem. That's their responsibility. Let them remain there. Why should I, why should I do anything for them? So he plays a role too. What is his role? He says, Yadaditya gatam tejo jagat bhasayate akhilam yat chandramasi yat chagnau tat tejo viddhi mamakam gamavishya cha bhutani dharayamyaham ojasa pushnami chaushadi sarvaha somo bhutva rasatmakah aham vaishvanaro bhutva praninam deham ashritah pranapana samayuktah pachamyannam chaturvidham सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि सन्निविष्टो मत्तस्मृतिर्ज्ञानम अपोहनम च वेदैश्च सर्वैरहमेव वेद्यो वेदांतकृत वेदविदेव चाहम्. So he's explaining how, see, in the samsara, he just said that you must chop down the tree, and he said that you must develop these qualities. So he's alluding to the practice of dharma. The practicing dharma, specifically yoga dharma, one is able to get out of samsara, chop down the people tree and get out of samsara. So, but doing that requires the sadhana, right? One has to, even to practice dharma, just by thinking that I'll practice dharma, it doesn't happen. One has to actually endeavor to do that. One has to do so many different activities. So for doing those activities, one depends on all the material paraphernalia around them. Until one reaches perfection, to do all the activities in the material world, to practice dharma, to practice the principles of dharma, the activities of dharma, one has to depend upon all the material paraphernalia around, all the different objects and the elements in the material existence in matter, right? So where do they come from and how are they sustained? So he says, I do that, I sustain. He says, I enter this universe, and I specifically enter the earth on which human beings live, and I sustain that earth. I give the energy. I, nourish the herbs. Pushnami cha aushadhihi sarvaha, by becoming the moonlight. Similarly, by becoming the Jataragni, Vaishvanaraha, by becoming the Jataragni, I sustain the bodies of the living beings. And I become the pranas. The pranas are also him. And the pranas help us to do all the functions in the body. And he digests the food, etc. So many different things. He just gives a sample. Okay, this is a sample of how everything that is running in this universe actually depends on him, his energies. So he takes a very conscious effort to support the jivatma in what it does. But interestingly, this is not only for those who are doing dharma, it is also for those who are not doing dharma. So he takes a neutral stand. He says that I will not force you to do dharma. I will attract you. I will give you Bhagavad-gita and such lot of shastra. Every now and then he comes, gives Bhagavad-gita, gives different types of shastra. Shastra is made available to you. Different types of saintly people come through his inspiration. He inspires saintly people to talk to us and give us this knowledge. Choice is ours. He will not force us. So he says, I am situated in everybody's heart, and from me knowledge comes. From me memory comes. From me forgetfulness of those two also come. Both come, depending on what we want. So it's our choice. We have to choose. I want this, then he said that if you take one step towards him, he takes 10 steps towards you. So if we are eager to do this, if we want to learn this sincerely, genuinely, immediately you will see that he helps from inside. He gives that direction. He says, do this, don't do this. Look at it like this. He empowers us. And then this becomes very easy, becomes clear. Okay, so that is the role that he plays. So he sustains the jiva's experience. He gives examples of that. And these are some of the like I said, a sample. It's not only these things, but any other form of energy or any other form of inspiration, all that also comes from him. So this is the fifth theme that we studied, the Ishvara's role in sustaining this universe and supporting the living entities, the Jivatmas. What is the sixth theme? The sixth theme is about the distinction between the Ishvara and the Jiva. So one should not mistake, because the Ishvara also is present in the samsara and the Jiva is also present. Actually, they are all the same, because also he said the Jivas are a part of me. So one should not think that, okay, he's indirectly telling us that he and I are the same. We are the same person, but now because of Maya or something, I'm thinking I'm not the Ishvara. But the moment I'm realized, then I will realize that I'm actually the Ishvara only. There's no other difference. Out of my Leela, I came here, I became like this. So he makes a very clear distinction between himself and the Jivatmas. So he says, Dvavimau Purushau Loke, Ksharaschaksara Evacha, Ksharas Sarvani Bhutani, Kutasto Akshara Uchyate, Uttamah Purushastu Anyah, Paramatma iti Udahritah, Yo Lokatrayamavishya Bibharti Avyayah Ishwarah, Yasmat Ksharam Atitoham Aksharadapi Chottamah, Atosmi Loke Vedecha Prathitaha Purushottamaha. So he's pointing out that he is very distinct from the jivas, and there are two types of jivas in the first shloka. One of them is called the Shara, the other is called Akshara. Shara are those jivas which are very much under samsara. Akshara are those who have realized the self and they are experiencing the unchanging nature. Kutastha. Kutastha means that which is experiencing unchanging nature. So he is beyond both, and he is known as Paramatma and Purushottama. And he enters the material universe, and like he said in the previous theme also, and he sustains it as the master. Okay, so that is the sixth theme, where Ishvara is distinct from the Jiva, and we should not mix up the two. What is the last theme? The last theme is bhakti unto Ishvara. So knowing this, one should now perform bhakti, because bhakti is the process by which we get out of samsara. Merely realizing the self is not good enough. One should realize the self, and along with realizing the self, one should perform bhakti. So he says, Yomam evam asammudho janati purushottamam sa sarvavid bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanagha etat buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata. So he's saying that one should not. Asammudha means there is no confusion by thinking that I am the Ishvara. Because if I think that I am the Ishvara, then where is the question of bhakti, right? Bhakti is not possible. If I am myself the Ishvara, then bhakti will not come, because bhakti then will become superficial. It will become like a ritual, right? Real bhakti is when there is at least one other personality, right? That is when you think seva karna hai usko. Whatever it is, it could be the Ishvara himself or it could be the other Jivatmas. Seva bhav or bhakti is, we say, directed towards the Ishvara. But what it means is that it's the same bhav that we have towards everybody. It's not like, sometimes we see in this world people who are very respectful to somebody who is superior to them, okay, to the boss in the office, or somebody more powerful in their colony, or anybody in general, somebody who is superior to them in some way. They're very respectful, very meek and humble in front of that person. They smile at him, speak very polite words, fold their hands, do pranam, namaskar. I need your blessings. I need your this, I need your that. This kind of language they speak. But to others who are their peers or their juniors, they will treat them badly. They will exploit them, misuse them, right? They will speak nastily to them. They don't care, because this fellow, anyway, what's the use of being polite with him? What's the use of showing respect to him? So this, you can see that, there's lack of clarity. That's called a foolish person. But the realized person, he is respectful to all. The person who has bhakti, particularly, not just the realized person, but if you have bhakti, seva bhav. Bhakti means seva bhav. Seva bhav involves the same bhav towards the Ishwar and to all the jivatmas, because every jivatma that you see, every living being that you see, is a part of Ishwar. So the same bhav is kept towards everybody. Basically the same respect. You treat everybody with respect by default. Of course, among the jivatmas, if you see somebody doing inappropriate things, badly or doing a wrong thing, doing a crime, or if you have a role to play whereby you punish that person, then you have to do that. Being respectful does not mean some artificial kind of niceness, not some false niceness by which you overlook everything. Let that person do whatever they want. He is Ishvara, so let him do. No, no, no. That kind of thinking is not part of bhakti. Bhakti means acting appropriately with the default level of respect. With everybody, by default, you speak with respect, assuming that they are also, they know their boundaries and they are doing things properly. By default, we don't assume that everybody is a criminal. But when you find that somebody does something wrong, then you have to take the appropriate action upon them or behave appropriately with them. Either avoid them completely or reprimand them, depending on what is appropriate in that context. So this is bhakti towards Ishvara. So he says that one who knows all this very clearly, whatever he explained so far in the first six themes, sarvavid bhajati mam, in all respects, that person serves him. By serving him, he serves all the living beings, which are a part of Bhagavan. And he says that this knowledge that I have given you is the most secretive knowledge. Because for two reasons I explained. One is that not everybody accepts it, and therefore it is like a secret. They are not able to get the benefit, even though they hear it. Many people are offensive towards it. So, what can be done? That will remain aloof from them. That knowledge remains aloof from them. And the second is that we also should be careful not to tell it. So today I was with a colleague of mine, and he was telling me about people, his relatives, some of his relatives, and he said when I asked him, "Do you go to temples with them?" He said, "No, no, no. They are actually atheists. They don't believe in all this. They don't like to go to temples. They only want to go to other resorts and picnic places. So I go there with them. After all, they are his close relatives, so he can't avoid them." But I said, okay, that's fine. Then he also added to it. He said, even now somebody gives me prasad because he's not an atheist. He believes in all these things. So he temple sometimes, or sometimes he gets prasadam and then he respectfully takes the prasadam. So he says, I don't share the prasadam with them now because I realize that when I share prasadam with them, they will make some sarcastic comments on it. They make some nasty comments. Because in their mind, they simply cannot accept that there is something like this, something that is something beyond this world. Prasadam is something special. There is something called God. Impossible. In their mind, it will never come. And he says, I don't want to force them also. So he just avoids that. He just doesn't talk to them about this particular thing. He talks other things with them, right? That is also a reason why it is secretive, because people are not able to accept it. And so we should also not tell them. Once we realize, like this person is doing, he's very mature. That's his maturity. He doesn't go and try to force them or argue with them. He doesn't try to argue with them and try to convince them that, look, if you don't accept, then you will remain in samsara, you will suffer. What is the use in saying that? Even though it is true, but what is the point in saying that? If you say that, they will get even more offended and they will make even more offensive comments, right? Which will not benefit either them or you or anybody else. So there is no point in saying that. So this knowledge remains secretive. So he says that this knowledge remains secretive, but one who knows it will become perfect. One who is able to accept it and know it will become perfect. And that is what our goal should be. That's what he says. Etat buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata. So that way, Sri Bhagavan has covered seven themes in the 15th chapter itself. And this actually, in one sense, is the essence of the Gita. The whole Gita, whatever is saying in 18 chapters, in an essential form has been captured in the 15th chapter. Even if somebody reads the 15th chapter alone and understands it thoroughly, even if he doesn't read the rest of the Gita, he has the full knowledge with him. Okay, so now in the next week onwards, we will start the 16th chapter. We'll go on to the 16th chapter, which takes us into other nuanced topics. But for today, before we conclude, I will quickly take you through one shloka from the Bhagavad-gita. Okay, Bhagavad-gita is something that we've been listening to. In the last week, we could not spend time on this because it went longer than I thought. So today we will do one shloka from the Bhagavata Katha. And this is in the 20th chapter of Dashama Skandha, the rainy season of Vrindavana. This is called the Varsha Ritu. Okay. So in the 20th chapter of Dashama Skandha of Bhagavatam, the Varsha Ritu followed by Sharad Ritu are described in Vrindavan. Krishna is very small, 5 or 6 years of age, and he's playing with his friends, and different kinds of leelas are happening. So in the course of that, the rainy season has come. Until then it was very hot, and there were forest fires and those things happened. And we heard how Krishna's leela took place with all that. And now in the rainy season, when he describes this, instead of directly describing any particular leela of Krishna during this season, he describes different aspects of Vedantic philosophy using metaphors in different shlokas. And some of those shlokas may not directly relate with Vedantic philosophy, but they show us some truth about this world. But I have taken shlokas which can be more connected to our Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, I will take you to one shloka today. So here, Sri Vasudevji writes, he says, Nisha mukheshu katotaha tamasa bhanti nagrahaha yatha papena pashandaha nahi veda kalau yuge. So he says, just like, in the rainy season, because of the clouds in the sky, everywhere there are dark clouds, both in the daytime and in the nighttime. So when it comes to the evening, just when the sun has set, it becomes dark very quickly in the monsoon because of the clouds. We don't see the sunset. So at the sunset time, or just after sunset, normally in the normal season, let's say in the month of January, right now, after sunset, you see all the clear sky, and you see all the planets and the stars, the nakshatras, the grahas, right? You see the full moon, and the whole sky is lit up. And if you are in some place where there are no city lights, let's say you're in some rural place or you're in the mountains, then you'll see the beautiful night sky, right? The light of the night sky will be visible to you. Everything is lit up by that light, that starlight, right? So he says, during the monsoon season, that doesn't happen. What happens? Khadyotaha, nishamukheshu khadyotaha, tamasa bhanti na grahaha. Khadyotaha bhanti, in the darkness. Khadyotaha means fireflies. The fireflies are visible. They become active in the monsoon. So their light is what we see. You don't see the stars. The fireflies are seen instead of the stars. Okay. So he says, this is just like papena pashandaha bhanti kalau yuge. In Kali Yuga, the sinful people, their philosophy is dominant. The people who are doing adharma, they propagate their philosophy about life, about what is meant by life, what is the goal of life, how we should attain perfection, what is perfection. For example, if you see the Western world, today I was reading in The Economist an article. It's talking about how people who are above a certain age, the baby boomers are now 55, 60 in that age group, and many of them are retired from their occupation. They have saved money or whatever, and they are leading a retired life. So how are they living? So the Economist is saying that in the US and probably Europe also, the Western dominated civilization, because their philosophy of happiness is material indulgence, sensual indulgence. So all they can think of as happiness is, alcohol, drugs, sex. Even at the age of 75, that article was saying they have sex, intense sex, not some once in a while, every day. And they have dating apps for people above the age of 70. So they find partners, one night partner. So this kind of thing. And that is the philosophy which dominates. They show that to the whole world, how we are enjoying life. We're actually happy. So people in India are thinking that is happiness now because they're seeing these Westerners apparently happy in living that kind of life. That is retirement. Of course, in India, we still don't have that kind of culture. We do have a little bit of it, but fortunately, it is not yet that much. And before it becomes more of what it is now, we should prevent it by giving this knowledge. So he says, in the Kali Yuga, These pashandis, this is called pashanda, means a person who is very sinful, engaging in all sinful activities, because for them or for him, that is the source of happiness, that is the source of perfection. So he says, Papena pashandaha kaliyuge bhanti, natu vedaha. The knowledge of the Veda, is replaced by this philosophy, this deviant philosophy. So materialism is one deviant philosophy. Then even in spiritual activities, we see so many philosophers. They give all kinds of philosophy, which is not based on the Veda. They ignore the Veda. The Veda gives us a very comprehensive understanding of the nature of the living being, of the nature of each Ishvara, of Prakriti, etc. But so many people, they occupy the position of a guru, call themselves as sadhu, okay, and they become popular in society. They become very popular in society because they speak very nicely, nice words, very attractive logic. They give very attractive logic, and thereby they build a huge following around themselves. And they give philosophy which has no connection to the Veda at all, completely ignores the Veda. So these people become very popular. So both from a materialistic perspective and from a spiritual perspective, the Veda is suppressed. And in Kali Yuga, this is what happens. So because Vyasdevji is writing this Bhagavatam at the beginning of Kali Yuga or at the end of Dwapar Yuga, in the transition between Dwapar Yuga and Kali Yuga, this Bhagavatam was written. So he's alluding to what the Kali Yuga will look like. Of course, in the Dwadasha Skandha of Bhagavatam, the 12th Skandha, Kali Yuga is described in much more detail what is going to happen. So here, this particular shloka explains that. So he says the fireflies, they shone at the start of the night, or they shine in present tense, not the bright luminaries in the sky. This is similar to how philosophies that deviate from dharma, from the Veda, flourish during the Kali Yuga, not the teachings of the Vedas. So something for us to reflect on and choose our path. We need to learn that, we need to accept that, if we have to get the benefit from this, we have to learn to accept that the Veda and philosophy based on the Veda is what we should take the refuge in. We should not go behind these kind of deviant philosophies. So with this, I will stop for today. This is a summary of the analogies we have seen so far. Analogies using the Varsha Ritu and Sharad Ritu. Right now we are still in Varsha Ritu, and we have seen the fourth analogy today. The first three we saw in an earlier class. The fourth one was about fireflies and deviant philosophies, or philosophers, you can say. I'll be happy to hear your comments, questions, etc. as usual. Please feel free to ask anything that comes to your mind.
So this is Bhaskar here.
Yes, Bhaskar.
So one just comment, not any question, is that these days, I think the moment you tell something the righteous way to do anything right, the
Yeah.
immediate response is, so you are judging me based on your perception, right?
Hmm.
And because you gave that
Yeah.
example of the Western world, and because I'm here in the Western country, it's very
Yeah. Yeah.
popular that the moment you tell somebody what is right, what is wrong, they start immediately become very defensive and saying, "What do you know about right and wrong, right?" So you're just judging me
Yeah.
based on something that you don't know. So that's the typical
Yeah.
response you will get.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's in India too now. The educated people in India will not listen to anything that you try to tell them, right? So unless they're attracted, like people like you are attracted to this philosophy, so you're coming voluntarily and listening to it. So other than that, the normal educated person who is actually very intelligent, the intelligent people, full of our country is filled with very intelligent people, but somehow there's no attraction to this, and we have to be very careful when we tell them anything. Yes, I agree with you.
Sir, one question.
Yes, Ruchi.
But there are a lot of Western philosophies also which are quite good. Like, um, so when you say philosophy which is not based on Veda, what does it mean? Like, um, yeah, I mean, I read about some Western philosophers. I started reading about Stoicism. It may not be as great as what we read in, let's say, Gita, but they also have very solid foundation. So, what do you mean when you say that philosophies which deviate from Vedas, or we should be very clear uh, to base it completely
Yeah,
on Vedas? So, I just want to understand that.
yeah, yeah. So the Veda is the basis for an enormous knowledge system which has prevailed in our country. That is what I mean. And today the government of India calls it the Indian knowledge system. What they mean by Indian knowledge system is the entire gamut of knowledge which came out of the paradigms of the Veda. The Veda accepts, like the Gita is actually a small microcosm of the Veda. Gita captures in just 700 shlokas what the entire Veda says. Veda is huge. So basically, the elements of the Veda include accepting ourself as different from matter, material, material manifestation, all that we see around us. If you have you know contemplated on this, you'll be able to appreciate it better. That matter and Atma, they are different. Jada versus Atma. We are the Atma. We have consciousness. Matter doesn't have consciousness. Beginning with that, the Veda goes on to explain that among the conscious living beings, there are two types. One is the Ishvara, and the other is the Jivatma, like us. And the bond between them is the source of happiness for all of us. Okay, putting it very briefly, right? Something I touched upon in today's class too. So this is the Vedic paradigm in general, to put it in a nutshell. So definitely, like you said correctly, there are so many other philosophies in this world, both in the West, in the East, and in India too, which are not based on the Veda, which don't borrow from the Veda paradigms. They have developed by virtue of people thinking on their own and writing, their opinions and their experiences based on their experiences and so on, which definitely are solid in their own sense, right? No doubt about it. So the Veda says that this is what knowledge is all about. The word Veda itself means knowledge, and it has come through the understanding. See, the understanding of the Veda also that the the Veda Vakya, whatever we call as the Veda, is not actually created by a human being. It's not created by anybody, including Ishvara. He's not a creator of the Veda. The Veda exists just like we exist. The Ishvara exists eternally. We are not created. We don't have a creation. We exist eternally. The Veda also is Shruti. It exists in sound form, very subtle sound form as Shruti. And the learned people who are self-realized and people who are trained, they know how to tap into this. They are able to tap into the Veda and reveal that to us. And normally the Veda is not written down. It is just recited repeatedly and grasped by the disciple. And that is how it's transmitted. The transmission of Veda is not by writing. So you know all these things already, right? So the Veda says that the knowledge which is other than this will not give you the perfection that the knowledge of the Veda is giving. That is what it essentially claims. Now it's up to us to decide whether to pursue it or not. I mean, it's difficult to logically say that okay, the Veda is correct and this is wrong. It's about how we are able to go deep into it and examine it for ourselves. Each one of us should do that. We should examine it ourselves and see, okay, what do I get from this knowledge? Where does it take me? Get what I'm saying?
Got it. Thank you, sir.
Isn't it? Hmm. So it requires contemplation, critical, yeah, I agree with you, critical contemplation. We need to look at other philosophies critically, look at our own philosophy also critically, and then say, okay, where does it take me? What are the value systems this is teaching me? What is that teaching me? What is the impact of that? And slowly take it forward. And ultimately, if you are able to develop the conviction that, yes, I will follow Veda based philosophy, like the Gita, for example, then you can do that. Good.
Sir, I would like to add a little bit that our philosophies or Vedas, Vedic philosophies is more of a societal point of a nature, and the Western is more of individualistic point of a nature. Is it true, sir?
Mm,
I would
yes, in some. Yeah,
say
Ruchi.
that, sir. I don't think
Ruchi,
so.
yes.
Not always. It's not a true statement, Puneet.
Okay.
Um, so, I mean, that's how the media portrays it. But if you actually start reading some of the philosophies, it's not like this. This is what I mean, and this is what I felt. But, sir, you can also add to this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Ruchi, that there are many schools of Western philosophy also which advocate living together. Because joint, family system was present in the West too. Uh, what is today the like what Puneet is pointing out, the tendency to live in isolation, to be separate, to be very individualistic, I think is a result of the hedonistic mindset, materialism. And materialism today is much, much more than what it was, let us say, 200 years back, or 300 years back, or 500 years back in the US, or I mean, in the West, not just the US. So I think the more materialistic or hedonistic we become, we we become more individualistic, because materialism is based on the qualities of greed, selfishness. The more selfish we become, the less we are able to live with others or cooperate with others as a joint family or something, isn't it? What do you think, Ruchi?
Yes, sir. I think I've read very little, honestly. And like, for example, this is not Western philosophy, like Chinese philosophy, Confucianism, right? It talks a lot about going with the flow. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, being along with the nature and so
Hmm.
on. So it's not
Yeah.
Western philosophy, but I'm saying what I'm trying to say is that it's not that everything is individualistic even in Western philosophy also. Uh,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
it's I would rather say when I'm reading more of Western philosophy, I feel it's more about the way, like you said, the way people have thought about it. So it's not beyond this life. It's always talking about this life. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but when I read more about Indian philosophy, it's always beyond the life also. So it's
Yeah.
more spiritual in nature.
Yes. So that is one fundamental difference between what is Veda-based philosophy and non-Veda-based philosophy. Veda-based philosophy is one of the fundamental axioms is the eternal existence of the living being. The living being has no birth or death, no creation or destruction. That's how the Gita also begins. The very first thing that Sri Bhagavan says to Arjuna after he starts speaking is Natvevaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipaha nachaya bhavishyamaha sarve vayam atah param. That is the 12th shloka of the second chapter. He begins speaking in the 11th shloka, in which he scolds Arjuna for speaking too much. And then in the 12th shloka, he says this. The very first thing, that the living being is eternal. There is no destruction or creation, which in turn means that this life is not the only lifetime that we experience. We have had so many lifetimes before. And if we continue this way, we will have so many more lifetimes in the future, change bodies. So this contrasts with the Western philosophies, all the other philosophies, in fact, probably Confucianism also, I don't know. You can tell me better, that there is no understanding of eternal existence of the living being. It's as if what matters is only this life. Everything begins and ends in this life. So what is required to be happy in this life? So even if they speak about detachment or service to others, seva, their seva comes from the thinking that within this life, if you do seva, you will be happy before you die, and you will die happily. But after death, what happens? I don't think any of these philosophies really talk about. Buddhism, of course, talks about some kind of nirvana, which is not again comparable to what we talk about as mukti, because it's very, very very abstract. Mukti is very well defined. It's not abstract. It's very clear what it is. So this is what I know. But in your readings, Ruchi, have you come across anything more than this? Whatever I said?
No, sir. I've read very little, honestly.
Hmm.
So I don't know that much also.
Hmm.
So isn't it the Indian philosophies is more bifurcated into two parts. One is the dharmic part, another one is adhyatmic part. The one which we are talking, which we are learning from Gita is more of adhyatmic, and
Yes.
along with the dharmic. But the
Yeah.
Westerners majorly focus on the overall what should what this world should be, and it is more materialistic center or individualism centered.
Yeah. Yeah. Even their theology, like Christian theology, for example, which has influenced Western thinking to some extent, at least before the hedonism became so strong now, uh, accepts the existence of a different being, a higher being, as God, as Father or God, but doesn't go into the same level of nuance that the Veda goes. It just accepts that, okay, we are sons of that God and there is a heaven, and then if we are good, then we will go to heaven after death. If we are bad, then we go to hell. But it ends there. It's as if there's only two destinations from here. So I don't know about Christian philosophy talking about rebirth, reincarnation, going from one body to another body and taking birth according to karma. Okay, it's just if you're a good guy, then you will go to heaven and be with Father, and if you're a bad guy, you will go to hell and you will suffer in hell. It's as if that is the end of it. There's no further existence beyond that. So that's the closest that it has come to the Veda. The closest in saying that, okay, there is something beyond this world. There is an Ishvara. There's something that we should consider when we do our actions. But beyond that, no. All other philosophy, other than this kind of theistic philosophies, they only talk about ethics, ethical philosophy. There's so much ethics in philosophy today, right? In the Western philosophy, which talk about being good and so on. But there are no convincing arguments for why we should be ethical. It's just about, thinking long term. If you're ethical, then you will get long term happiness in this lifetime. Then you will get more sustainable happiness. It stops with that. Yeah, our dharma and adharma, like you said, not adharma, you said the dharma and what the Gita says about mukti, okay, which is what earlier I used to use the words, and even today I will use it. Samanya dharma and paro dharma, both are dharma, and both are in accordance, in alignment with the Veda. Veda recommends both of them depending on our level of thinking. Now, Samanya dharma is the closest that Western ethics comes to that. You can say being good, doing activities in a manner that is in accordance with the principles of the Shastra, like ahimsa, satya, brahmacharya, all those things, which I covered in the last class. So acting, in accordance with that, practicing ahimsa, practicing satya, practicing asteya, parigraha, etc., gives us uh, enough punya. If we do that, we get punya by living in accordance with dharma, so that in future births we go to a happier state of existence within samsara. We remain in samsara, but we have a better state of existence. We are happier. Like we may be born in Swarga or born in some other loka where there is a better happiness. Or even if you are born on the bhuloka itself as a human being, then we are born in a better family. A better family means a family which gives us more, wealth or whatever, a better state of happiness. Yeah, just put it like that. Now, parodharma is what the Gita is about. Gita actually says that you should go beyond samanya dharma and pursue parodharma, by which you break the samsara, you cut out of samsara and go to your eternal position. Don't think of a happier existence in this samsara. Think of your eternal happiness. That is what should be the goal. That's the point that Gita is trying to make. Yes, you're right. Yeah. As we go through this again and again, these concepts are repeated chapter after chapter. And as we see them again and again, it becomes more and more clear, isn't it? We become more and more clear about what we are talking and what we are doing. Good. Thank you for raising good questions and points today. Any other questions? We still have a little bit of time.
Uh, Sir, Pranam Akshat here. Just
Yes,
had a
Akshay.
couple of questions, sir. One is that, so one is probably at a broader level. What I've not been able to kind of fully understand and I've been trying to reconcile is in terms of the, when we refer to Lord Krishna, essentially,
Hmm.
the the lineage or the hierarchy, so to speak, is becoming a little confusing, sir, in the sense that from what I understand, as per the Bhagavad-gita and as per let us say the belief of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya and as well as ISKCON, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead and who is essentially the kind of the history kind of goes back literally millions of years and all of that. Whereas in a lot of mythology, typically we refer to Krishna being an avatar of Lord Vishnu. So that is, and I think I might have asked it in some format earlier also, but I think that that time it was a little more basic. So that is one thing which I just wanted to understand, sir, as to what is the, what is the view or what is the interpretation on that. And another relatively minor or different question also was with regard to Karma Yoga, wherein typically we say that, Bhakti Yoga is the highest form of actions one can take, and that is what is needed for liberation. But I believe in the Bhagavad Gita somewhere, Lord Krishna also cites the example of King Janak as a karmyogi who was kind of able to achieve this.
Yes. Yeah, good questions actually. Anything further you want to say, or shall I offer
No, sir.
my
No.
opinion?
I look forward to your thoughts, sir.
Yeah. Well, the first question about the different understandings which exist, all based on the Veda. That happens because the Veda itself allows or accommodates different types of people or different types of Shraddha, I would say. In the 17th chapter, Sri Bhagavan says, our Shraddha is what defines us. He says, Yo yat Shraddha sa eva saha. Says, Sattvanurupa sarvasya Shraddha bhavati bharata. Yo yat Shraddha sa eva saha. Means that we have something called Shraddha. All of us have. Right? Something, all of us have some Shraddha in something. Shraddha doesn't mean just religious faith. I mean, Shraddha is a inner conviction about the world, about reality, what reality is about, the way we look at this world, the way we interpret this world. It's a deep inner conviction. Now, that conviction, of course, it changes as we come across different experiences in life, as we gain knowledge. It changes, no doubt. But whatever it is at a given point of time, that defines us. According to that Shraddha, we act and we accept or reject something. So the Veda realizes this. And realizing this or acknowledging this, the Veda makes available different ways to interpret the basic fundamental tenets. The fundamental tenets are something like what I just now said. There is the eternal, the living being, the eternal Ishvara, Prakriti. All those things are the same across these interpretations. But the way in which, for example, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Krishna to be the most fundamental form of that universal being. Whereas if you go to another sampradaya, then they would say it's Mahavishnu. In yet another sampradaya, they would say it is Shiva who lives in Kailash, and so on. So these variations come because of the Shraddha that we have, that which in turn depends on our past samskaras and what we become attracted to. For example, somebody sees the qualities of Shiva. Okay, Shiva is very strong, he's very renounced, he's full of knowledge, he's very, what do you call, uh, if he decides something, he does it. That kind of strength he has. So many wonderful qualities you see in Shiva attracted to that. The same person, when he looks at Krishna, he may not find that attractive. Krishna is like, a small boy playing with a flute. Uh, in his understanding, that may look like a very, it doesn't look like God. So Shiva looks more like God. So in this way, the same universal being, the Veda projects in different ways, in different aspects, different attributes, different properties to accommodate the whole universe of living beings. Everybody has a way to approach dharma. It gives a path for practicing dharma in some way or the other. Okay, that is why we see this thing, and we should not get confused. So again, like when I was answering Ruchi's question, so we have to reflect on ourselves and see what is it that I am attracted. Ultimately, my goal is to practice dharma. I want to get that benefit of practicing dharma. I want that pure knowledge. So now, what is the path I should take? Okay, so now we are getting exposed to different philosophies. So choose, make your choice individually. If you're attracted to this, then follow it, accept it and follow it. If you're attracted to something else, then learn that thing from a appropriate teacher and follow that sincerely, and then you will make progress, whichever path you can take. Now, just remind me again, what was your second question about?
Sir, about a reference to King Janak, that despite
Karma yoga, bhakti yoga.
yeah,
Yeah. So the simple difference between karma yoga and bhakti yoga is that bhakti has something more than karma yoga. It has that element of that deep bond with Bhagavan. Between the jiva and the Bhagavan, there is a deep bond. The jivatma, that is we see Bhagavan or Ishwar as our relationship, our relative. Like he's my son. Like in the case of Yashoda, or of course we don't start like that. We start by seeing him as our master, and we are his servants. We are his das. Okay, that is the bhakti sadhana. In bhakti sadhana, we see him like that. Like Hanuman sees Ram. How does Hanuman see Ram? He sees him as his master, and he is his servant. I'm always available at your service. Whatever you want, my life is for you. So, this kind of personal bond where you depend upon him completely and you are always at his mercy, at his service, you're under his refuge. This element of bhakti yoga is not present in karma yoga. In karma yoga, the thinking is that I should attain perfection by doing my duties sincere. Now, this aspect is also present in bhakti yoga. The person who does bhakti yoga also does that. So, whatever is in karma yoga is also present in bhakti yoga. Karma yoga is, you can say, bhakti yoga minus that particular relationship, to put it in a simple way. So that's the only difference. And in the case of Janaka, because in the third chapter, where he gives the example of Janaka, the third chapter is focused on karma yoga. In the third chapter, he doesn't refer to bhakti yoga at all. He's only talking about karma yoga there. So it's appropriate to give an example of a person when he makes one particular point about karma yoga, that he says, even after perfection, the person who is practicing karma yoga does not leave his duties, although he is eligible to. If a person who has attained perfection, perfect knowledge, and realized his self, if that person decides to no longer perform his normal duties, normal responsibilities, and goes away, let's say he decides to go to some place in the Himalaya and live in his own cave peacefully and do his meditation, then he is not at fault, because already he has managed to detach himself from everything. He is perfect. But even though that is true, he feels the compassion. He feels that if I do this, then many other people who are watching me will also want to do it. And because they are not qualified, they don't have that purification which I have managed to get, they will suffer because they will not be able to sustain it. They will not be able to do what I'm doing, but they will just imitate me. And so, for the benefit of society, what he does is he remains in society, like Janaka did, and he carries out his responsibilities. So, even though he is perfect, he carries out all his responsibilities sincerely, and that is called Loka Sangraha. And that's what to make that point, he brings in Janaka. He gives the example of Janaka. There's so many other kings also he could have referred to, but he refers to Janaka.
So
Is it clear?
yeah, Akshat.
No, Ruchi, go ahead.
Building on Akshat's question,
Yeah.
I often hear Vishnu followers and Shiva followers. So what is that base difference? I mean, what is the foundational difference between that? That just wanted to understand, because I have not understood this Shiva followers. And also, second question of Akshat on, so Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Gyan Yoga, right? So Gita says these are three alternative paths, correct? But in somewhere when I'm reading in some chapters, it is also like Krishna is saying bhakti yoga is best, and then he contradicts himself and he comes back and says, no, these are again three paths. So how does it reconcile that these are actually three alternative paths? That part I have not understood still.
Okay, I'll explain that. The first question was about the Vishnu followers, Shiva followers, similarly Durga followers, Shakti worshippers. So like I just said, depending on the Shraddha that one has, one gets attracted to some particular deity. And in our Vedic knowledge system, in the Indian knowledge system, there is this concept of Ishta Devata. So even among, say, Vishnu followers, uh, somebody may become attached to one particular form of Vishnu or Krishna, right? There are so many different forms. Like Rama, for example. Hanuman is attached to the form of Vishnu as Ram, and he will not be able to relate comfortably with any other form of Vishnu. He will relate only with that. That is his relationship. So this also becomes a part of our Shraddha. Our Shraddha gets shaped in that manner that we become attached to a particular form, a particular manifestation. When I say form, I don't mean just the appearance, the physical akar, what we say akar in Hindi, the physical appearance, but I mean the way in which that particular manifestation of Ishvara behaves, or the kind of qualities that particular manifestation displays. Like Ram, for example, the kind of qualities that he displayed and the kind of conduct that he, actually manifested is clearly different from the way in which Krishna behaved. The same person, when he came as Krishna, he behaved in slightly other ways. Like he was playing on his flute, he was jumping in the river and playing with small boys, this and that. But Ram never did things. At least it's not talked about in the Ramayana, right? He was like a prince, and he grew up as a prince, and then he had the responsibility of running the kingdom, and in between go to the forest and come back. So very different kind of behavior, different kind of values he showed. The same person. So somebody becomes attracted to that, inspired by that, becomes attached to that akar of Ram, and then now that becomes his Ishta Devata. So in this way, in our country, we see that there's so many numerous forms of the Ishvara. Same Ishvara manifests himself as Shiva, Krishna, Vishnu, Durga, whatever, and people become attached to that form and they worship and they practice dharma. So dharma accommodates this variety. Dharma is diverse. It accommodates variety and gives everybody a path to go to perfection. Okay, this is your first question. And second question about the three different systems of yoga that the Gita dominantly focuses on: karma, jnana, and bhakti. Actually, there are, between the three put together, there are only two major paths. One is the path of, you can say, karma, jnana, and bhakti, all combined in one to get that final perfection. And the other is the path of only bhakti, that's called uttama bhakti. And both are alluded to in the Gita. Now, the reason why it is like this is because karma is what naturally comes to people. Most people today, if you ask them, and this is also evident from what we see in society, if you ask somebody who knows something about Gita, let's say there are people, so many people in India know about Gita, they have read the Gita, they read it every day in their house, or they have some understanding. Now, typically, if you ask somebody, what is the Gita about? The first words that come from their mouth is karma yoga. Gita inspires us to become karma yogis. Okay, this is what they say. Now, actually, the Gita is much more than karma yoga. If you read it thoroughly from end to end and understand everything through the different commentaries on Gita, go into it in real detail, Gita has so many other things also. Now, karma yoga is definitely one major path. Now, karma yoga is attractive to most people by natural, mentality. The idea that we should work with detachment, we should do duties for the sake of the duty itself and not for anything in return. Okay, whatever return comes should be used for the benefit of the larger society. It should be offered to Bhagavan. That is what karma yoga is about, and that attracts people. It inspires people to do something. Whereas bhakti to many people looks like a sort of a emotional thing, a sentimental thing, and people are not able to fully understand why that should be there. Why should they're not attracted to Krishna or Vishnu or, for that matter, any other particular deity. They become attracted to this. And similarly, after Karma Yoga. See, Karma Yoga is not an end in itself. Karma Yoga actually leads to the stage of initially is about focusing on your duty and developing detachment, developing all those qualities that Sri Bhagavan is telling we should develop. And after that, what happens? How does one get perfection after doing that? Once perfection begins, when one becomes more and more contemplative. Okay, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, contemplating on the truth. And that is called Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is that part of the process, the path, where one focuses more on contemplation on knowledge, on the true knowledge, not just theoretical knowledge, but true realization. One builds on that realization by contemplating. One says, I'm not this body, I'm not this body, I'm not this body, I am the Jivatma in the body. That becomes a dominant part of one's sadhana. Unlike in Karma Yoga, in the initial stage of Karma Yoga, it's all about focusing on the duty alone. And through that focus on duty with detachment, purification happens. But once somebody has matured, they do this contemplation. And that contemplation, the process of dhyana is given. Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga is one way by which this can be intensified. In the initial stage of Ashtanga Yoga, one does karma and everything, yama, niyama. And one also, see, the asana pranayama parts come in dhyana yoga because they build our body and mind towards that jnana, that contemplation. To be able to contemplate sitting in one place quietly, away from everything else, once one has become sufficiently pure. Dhyana is like a methodology. Like in research, we talk about methodology. So to practice Jnana Yoga, Dhyana becomes a methodology, the Ashtanga Yoga process. Ashtanga Yoga is a methodology for that. So it's mentioned in the 6th and the 8th chapter of Gita. Now, Bhakti, see, eventually, after even in Ashtanga Yoga, it is said that after you reach Samadhi, after Samadhi, you have to do Bhakti. Because Mukti, the final complete liberation, or, being able to achieve a state where you don't take birth again with this material body, you are able to live, your existence becomes completely free from matter. There is no material body also after that. To attain that state, you have to perform Bhakti. A little bit of bhakti at least, even if it's not that pure Uttama bhakti, which is talked about later, you have to perform some bhakti. So karma, jnana, bhakti, they come one after the other in that path. Now, bhakti yoga by itself is an independent path. It doesn't depend on doing karma yoga the way karma yoga is described. In that one doesn't have to consciously think I'm going to be detached from my work. It is implicit in bhakti yoga. The way the process of bhakti yoga is described, whereby one becomes attached to Bhagavan, right from the beginning, as one does one's activities, one starts thinking that this belongs to Bhagavan, it belongs to my master. Everything belongs to him, and I'm doing it for him only. In Karma Yoga, one does the activity thinking it's my duty, and then gives it to Bhagavan, gives the fruits to Bhagavan, the whatever results come. But in Bhakti Yoga, the activity itself is done as an offering to Bhagavan, right from beginning itself. So implicitly, Karma Yoga gets captured in Bhakti. And similarly, Jnana also, contemplation on the truth, that absolute truth, doesn't have to be a separate process, because by the sadhana of Bhakti, like doing japa or doing different kinds of other kirtan and sadhana and so on. So every day one is training one's mind to contemplate on that Ishvara, contemplate on Bhagavan. So elements of Jnana Yoga also get built into Bhakti, are inbuilt into Bhakti, so that when one matures in Bhakti from the sadhana stage to the sadhya stage, then automatically the benefit of Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga both arrive. And the last stage of Bhakti is also part of it. All the three are combined in that path. So three systems of yoga are talked about in the Gita, but along two paths, two parallel paths, you can say, like this. Is it clear to some extent, Ruchi? It may not be fully clear, but is it at least some extent clear to you?
No, this is very clear, sir. I think I've been under the misconception that there are three paths, karma, jnana, and bhakti separately, but this makes it very clear.
Sir, Bhaskar, I had a question.
Yes, Bhaskar.
And just to extend that conversation about Raja Janak, right? So, sir, I think my question is that when does one know that, it is time to, get out of the worldly responsibilities that one has to deliver and go towards a more dedicated, time and space for God. And I want to ask, there are two sub questions stemming out of this. Sir. One is around the example of Siddhartha, who later turned out to be Lord Buddha. So, as we know, Prince Siddhartha, he gave up his family life, his young family, including his son, and walked away from everything and said that, I am going to pursue a different path now. Right. So, that
Mm.
is one. Very recently, sir, I am also seeing there's a Mahakumbh happening in India. And I'm
Mm.
also seeing a lot of LinkedIn posts wherein there is an IIT Baba, right?
Mm.
Wherein somebody who has graduated from IIT, but then he gave up his corporate life and now he has become a Naga Sadhu, right? So I was reading a very interesting LinkedIn post wherein somebody was just challenging that what do you want to do in life? Do you want to just be high on, smoking weed and run away from your responsibility, or be an IITian like other IITians who are there, right? Who are doing good for India.
Mm.
So this is something that I just wanted to ask, sir. What is your perspective on this situations?
Yeah, so first of all, unless one is sufficiently mature in spiritual realization, one should not abandon one's duties and go anywhere. And how does one know that? That's what you asked me. One knows that from internal realization, as one practices, like for example, karma yoga. When one practices karma yoga maturely, in a sincere manner, then one automatically develops that purification from within, and one realizes that I no longer want to do this. There is no need for me to do this. Nobody is also dependent on me. For example, my children have grown up. My wife can easily be taken care of by them. They're all comfortable, and I need more time. And if I stay with my family, then I cannot do this. So I can very easily go away from my family without disturbing anyone, without causing any disturbance. I can go to the Himalayas or become a Baba or whatever. And such a person, if he becomes a Baba, one of the qualities of a genuine Baba is that he stays away from media. He would not want to become a part of media attention. Of course, media will chase him, so we can't blame the Baba for that. Even great sadhus, media wants to cover something. And in this case, particularly this IIT Baba, it's a hype. It's just a hype. You can clearly see that. There are so many IITians. There's so many IITians I know who have, graduated from IIT and become a monk somewhere or the other. I know people in Ramakrishna Mission. I had one senior, for example. I'll just mention because you brought this point. His name was, his original name was, forgetting his name now. He's from the north only. Shirish Jadhav. Shirish Jadhav. You can Google on it. Shirish Jadhav. And he was so saintly even when he was there. He was All India rank number 2 in one batch senior to my batch. That is the 85 IIT entrance batch. I'm the 86 batch. So he was my senior in IIT Kanpur. And he was, even when I've met him, I've interacted with him a lot, and not a lot, but many times. And I know his, very, very nice nature, very good qualities in him. And he was very active with Ramakrishna Mission right from the time he joined. I think even before he came to IIT, he was very active with Ramakrishna Mission, Vivekananda Samiti, and doing seva and lot of activities that they do in IIT Kanpur. And he was a brilliant student because All India number 2, rank number 2. He was in computer science and he was brilliant. He could solve problems which PhD students would not be able to solve in computer science. And what did he do? He did not, like all the other students did, he did not go abroad or anything. After finishing BTech, he joined for PhD. He got direct admission to PhD. He joined for PhD and did his PhD also in IIT Kanpur, during which he continued to do Ramakrishna Mission, Vivekananda Samiti activities, and all that. And he finished his PhD very quickly. For him, doing a PhD was no big deal. So after finishing his PhD, what did he do? He joined Ramakrishna Mission as a monk. He became a monk there. He's still there. His name is some Sarvottamananda or something. I'm not sure exact wording. I can get you in the future. And he joined them, and he has been with them and he teaches there. He has taught several, because Ramakrishna Mission also has its own colleges and university activity. They also have academics. Many of their monks actually teach normal subjects, not just spiritual subjects, but subjects like what you people and what you and I are doing. They teach such subjects to people, and he's doing that. He's doing that as a samaj seva. He doesn't take any salary. He lives there. He believes that is the seva that he wants to do. So what we are seeing with this Baba in this Kumbh Mela is just a hype. There are so many I know. This is just one example. And there was another example 1 year junior to me. He went to Berkeley, another brilliant case, and came back and joined Ramakrishna Mission. He's still there. So like this, there are many, 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 many people from IIT. So this media thing is just, is something we shouldn't take seriously at all. And this particular Baba, I know nothing about him. He's a young, obviously, he's much younger than me. He's just joined, I think, now finished his BTech and joined and become a Baba. And probably he's a serious Baba. I don't know about him. I don't know enough about him to make any comments about his commitment to what he is. But the media, I think, is making a big thing, I mean, much bigger thing out of it than they should. It's giving a false impression as if, like, there's only one guy from IIT who's done this. And that's typical media behavior. Because the media gets its revenue through that, no? The media thrives on sensationalism. This is sensationalism, nothing but sensationalism.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Really, really had a good discussion today, and let's keep this up in every class that we meet. So I think probably we can close for today. We are almost at 8 o'clock. We'll close for today with the Antyamangalam. And if you still want to ask more questions, please write to me or connect with me on the phone. Om Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahishaha Gobbrahmanebhyo Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Dhanyavadaha. Thank you for joining, and please continue this.